Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Lava, the podcast that takes you behind the scenes, featuring veterans, culture, and small businesses. I'm your host, Michael Tan, and joining me today is my co-host, Spencer Harmon. Before we get started, a quick reminder to our listeners to follow, subscribe, and leave a review if you enjoy the show. Now let's jump straight into it. So Spence, how you been? It's been a very long time. We haven't recorded any episodes since last year. I just want to play catch up, see how we're doing.
Oh, it sounds, yeah, I've been good. We just need a little hiatus. Pour a lot of time and energy into something like this podcast. It's like, all right, it's a new year. Let's take a little bit of time to get our bearing before we resume. And so, hope everybody out there that's always rocked with us. Hope you're all having a good 2025. I know it's been a very hit the ground running kind of year, especially here in America. And so I've been doing well. Just kind of been grinding at work and just constantly anticipating my retirement from the Army, stuff like that. But then just my regular jobs have been keeping me busy and been working some OT and all that. But I enjoy my job and the people I work with. So been good. How about you, Mike?
It's been good. I had a little hiccup on Saturday evening where I had to go into the emergency room. The wife decided that we should go to Texas Roadhouse to have some steaks. And you know what's funny? We went there to eat, but we didn't have steak. So we had steak kebab. So it was kind of like an insult to all the steak eaters. You go to a very expensive place to eat the steak and you don't order steaks. But it was good. I started eating the appetizers and then I felt in my chest almost like a tightness. So it was basically chest pain. So imagine getting punched in the stomach and you take that pain and you bring it up to where your neck and your chest area is. So it kind of almost imitated like a heart issue. So that was around 5 p.m. on Saturday. And then, I didn't want to go to the ER immediately. So I waited until maybe 8 and to go to the ER, because normally if I had a heartburn or acid reflux or anything that involved, food, it will go away. But this was the first time that something like this stayed. I even took Pepto-Bismol and even tried to tough it out. But, with so many people passing away that I know of this year, it seems like every week I hear someone passing away. I didn't want to take that chance. So I got up, got ready, and just told my wife that I was going to the hospital. So we ended up going together to the ER and didn't get released until 2 a.m., maybe 3 in the morning. They ran a bunch of tests. I think this was the first time I got in that machine. I think it's called a CAT scan, where they put you in that circle machine and the ring will spin. But anyways, they said...
I've never been in that, so
yeah, it's the first time I've been in one of those, unless I was in one in the past. But they took all the tests. They said my heart everything seemed normal. But then they dropped the news that, hey, there's something abnormal about your heart, and that's you have a twisted aorta. So I guess they were trying to explain it to me that this is something that you were kind of born with. So I guess I was born with it and didn't know about it. So what kind of hit me was when they said, as you grow older, this will affect you. Basically, they dropped a bomb that, there's an aneurysm where the twisted aorta is, and it could, kill you when you get older. So I was like, oh man.
Yikes.
Getting the news that something is like a ticking time bomb inside you is not good news. but everything was good. I just have to follow up with the cardiologist and see if everything is actually good, because ER doctors only treat the symptoms, but they don't treat
Like the root
the
cause.
yeah. So I have to
Oh, that's
see a
crazy, man.
cardiologist. But that's the only, I would say, exciting thing that's happened since the last time we spoke last year. I've been
Man, that's
very
pretty major,
focused.
man. I
Yeah.
thought you were going to tell me that, like, you swallowed part of the toothpick on the shish kebab or something. And I was like, oh, so you don't let Samantha pick the restaurant again? But never mind. No, no, hey, man, sorry to hear that.
But yeah, it was big news, but at the same time, I wasn't worried because annually I've been getting my heart checked, and every time the doctor said it was good, and I think it's something with either my lungs or the gastrointestinal, my esophagus, because what the diagnosis they said was there's a space between your lungs and your heart. There's a cavity there, and it's inflamed. So basically, translation is they don't know what's going on. So yeah,
Man,
that, and I've been very busy with trying to get volunteers for our nonprofit, get some events started. There's a lot of exciting things that are rolling along with our nonprofit. We'll be starting a monthly. It's basically a dinner and connect for veterans. So it's a veterans dinner meetup where all veterans come together at a local restaurant. They eat, they talk, connect, network, and basically build a support group here, up here in Davis County, Utah. I wanted to start one of those just to kind of help the veterans who are needing companionship, who are alone out there, especially up in Davis County, because a lot of events are down in Utah and Salt Lake County. And I just wanted to kind of improve, the mental health of our veterans, and bring in that camaraderie and sense of belonging that, when we meet other veterans, you kind of click, that feeling. So that, and there's a bunch, there's other events that we're going to be involved in, but but that's all I'm gonna talk about for now. But yeah, that's all. Just dealing with nonprofit and work, especially now since I'm a federal employee, civil service employee. We're dealing with all those executive orders that are rolling down, and that uncertainty if you're going to lose your job or what. So, but I'm told that my job is secure because I'm essential.
so like I've got some friends that are in government roles as well, and it is kind of a crappy thing just being in some turbulent turmoil. Whether or not like just trying to decipher your future with whether or not you're going to have a job. I mean, ultimately, I voted for Trump, and I do like seeing a downsizing in a lot of government roles, but not so. But we got to be careful about what we're downsizing to. This blanket sweep kind of approach that Elon Musk is taking is like kind of bizarre to watch. He's like, I just declare all these people are gone, and it's like, first off, I don't know if you can legally do that because you're an advisor to the president, but I mean, look, I don't know the intricacies of his role, but I'm like, I don't think this is a good way to go about doing things. Like, there are essential and non-essential people, and we need to be sure that we're sorting out who's who. And so, yeah, hopefully you don't get too much turbulence in your job, and best outcome happens overall. But yeah, it's been like I said, it's been a hit the ground running kind of year so far. So a lot of changes happening really fast.
So, how do you think Trump is doing so far since he's taken the reins of President of the United States of America? Because that's a trending topic every day. And when I hop on the computer, I read the news. It's always Trump, 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 Trump this, Trump everything. There's nothing new in the news that's headlining. So, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think overall it's a net positive, but it's also like this is a bit too early to tell. Like, it's only been 2 months. Like, we've got to give him some proper time to, see if these changes are good or not. But I know that this is the same as when he was elected the first time. Is that the news, especially the mainstream media, like, they're very obsessed with every little movement the guy does, and so it's like, am I getting a fair analysis of what's happening? Because it's weird when you look at the corruption and the bad decisions when the guy with the blue tie is making when he's in charge, you just don't get as much coverage on that level. It turns into just fringe coverage by pundits and independent media. Now that Trump's the guy to scrutinize again, so I'm sure CNN's ratings is boosting up again because they basically blew their wad up until he was out in 2020, and then they literally tanked afterwards. But don't get that twisted. He's obviously doing a lot. It's only been 2 months, and he's writing a lot of executive orders, making a lot of changes. My main issue is I knew that Elon Musk was a big supporter of him. I didn't know he's going to be this active of a participant in his cabinet, and I don't know how. I don't really care for that personally. I'm personally somebody that's been kind of an Elon Musk skeptic. I think he's done a lot of good things. There's some things where some people do certain acts that gives you a bit of an insight as to who they are. And for him, I thought one of the main things he did that was cool was when he pioneered these electric cars and made them super efficient. He didn't just hog his designs to himself. He released the patents because he's so convinced that humanity's future lies in this electric energy for travel, that he's like, I don't want to just corner the market and hog it all to myself. I want all of humanity to move forward. So he released the patents on his technology so that other competitors could do it too. So that's a cool thing. But then there's also things like, look, the guy is the richest guy in the world, but it's not just because he builds successful companies. His wealth isn't completely because he made Tesla and it took off. A lot of his wealth for his companies is from government grants. And so when we talk about bloated government spending, a lot of that bloated government spending is what made him so wealthy. And it's like he secures things for like the Hyperloop that he's going to build in California that he never finished, and they declared it just done. And he's always like, and when he's asked about it in interviews, he's like, "Oh, it's so simple. It's so simple. I just can't believe how simple it is." Like, he's saying this to interviewers, and then he ends up abandoning the project because it's just not possible. It's like, because you had plenty of money, the government gave you tons of money to do it, and then he just couldn't do it, And so I don't believe he's a completely bad actor, but I am very skeptical of this guy who is just very ego driven, that seems to be given a lot of power in a position he wasn't elected in, and that always makes me skeptical. And it's like, and the guy's got a weird ego too, because he'll lie about being like the top player in Diablo 3 or 4 or whatever it is, and I'm like, you are just objectively not. Like, you can track who those top players are. It has never been Elon Musk, and it's like, but why would a guy who's so wealthy and so successful have such a fragile ego that he has to lie about also being the coolest video game player ever? This doesn't make sense. So little insights to that kind of ego are kind of disturbing to me. But look, like I said, it's early to tell. They're finding a lot of waste. I'm good with getting rid of the waste, but I'm going to keep a skeptical eye on him as well, because that's the thing, especially if you're on the right side of the aisle. The Democrats and liberals are more known for marching in lockstep, and that, like, they are on board. Whatever this politician proposes, we're all on board. It's kind of how they kind of painted themselves into a corner in the last 10 years with a lot of social issues. Republicans are never on that side. So that's why even usually when Republicans have power, they don't do a lot of changes, is because they're fighting with each other just as much. And so, but that's kind of the point. They don't believe in being, they emphasize qualities that of individualism. Well, the consequence of that is that everyone's going to take a different view on what's going on, and you might not get it all together. So I don't know. That's kind of a mouthful, but that's kind of where I'm at right now. Like, we'll see. Like, I'm hoping it's a net positive, but on a lot of issues, like, we're just going to wait for it to be seen. I do like the direction we're going in some of our foreign policy, though. So, like, that I'm enjoying.
Yeah, Well, I'm also skeptical on Elon Musk and what he's doing, because he's supposed to be under an official government, an actual, well, what are they called? Someone in isn't he supposed to be under someone in, like a cabinet or someone with an official title?
Yeah, I think so.
So
I'm not.
he's supposed to be under someone, but he's the face of Doge, which he's not supposed to be the face of Doge. But ever since President Trump took office, I've been reading on the news every day, staying current on what's happening since he's taken office. And so far, I like what he's doing, but there are some things that I kind of like make me, worry of the direction of where things are going, especially with all these mass layoffs. Just for our listener, a layoff is not similar to firing. A layoff, they can actually call you back. A firing is the company cuts ties with you. Because I've been laid off by an actual company before, and they try to call me back within 3 months. But anyways, like you mentioned, the mass layoffs, they're laying off people who are needed in the positions that in the government. I'm surprised they fired that many IRS employees. Have you heard the amount of IRS employees they fired?
No. What was it?
It's a high amount. I think it was like 50 or 70,000. I didn't even know there were that many IRS employees. But it's a time of uncertainty for a lot of people. It makes you like not want to go out there and spend too much money and stuff. Kind of save it and buy yourself emergency kits just in case things happen. But yeah, I'm all for what President Trump is doing, because I actually go out there and read the news on what's going on, and I don't just take it from one news source. I try to see the whole picture. I try to see the whole picture of, the Ukraine and Russian war and how it started, and the whole thing back in 1991, the whole treaty, especially with the NATO pact. I try to understand Israel and Hamas and how the whole thing started and what's going on with today. But yeah, that's my input. Is I'm okay for now, but I'm certain I'm uncertain with the tariffs. But at the same time, we don't need a lot of things from these other countries. We can basically survive. The U.S. can survive by itself on a lot of things. There's some certain things that we still need, but I think the U.S. can, survive by itself.
Yeah, I mean, I did say that I am a fan overall of like our approach to our foreign policies. The tariff thing will be an interesting thing for us to figure out. I'm no economist, and so everybody here, if you're savvy with the economy, I'm sure you're listening to us and rolling your eyes right now. So, take it with a grain of salt. This is just our, shotgun spread opinions, but the idea of trying to pass government funding onto countries that sell us goods, as opposed to constantly putting that burden on the taxpayer, it's a pretty cool idea. We just got to see how feasible it is. Now, I saw this one figure drawn up where it's like if you completely replaced every bit of taxes paid in by citizens and had it replaced by a tariff, you'd have to up tariffs by 150%, some ridiculous number to cover just what the taxpayers are already covering. So it's like, look, I don't think that it's possible to completely replace us paying taxes, but I think the idea of lessening the burden on the taxpayer and just putting more of that burden on people who are trying to sell us goods it could be a beneficial thing. I hope that's the case in the long run. Same with the foreign policy. I know that we're only a little bit removed from when JD Vance and Trump kind of double teamed Zelensky, but I've been kind of a skeptic on Zelensky, and the way that he's perpetrated his war. Like, there's a certain point where I'm like, look, I feel like you're just pimping out your situation to get as much money as you can out of this, because there's a lot of the media spin on this war in Ukraine is just, it's been so bizarre. Like, sometimes the media is spinning it like they're winning and they got Russia on the ropes. Not the case. Like, in fact, Russia's already taken like all of its significant landmarks that it wanted. Russia has had and has just held for like a year plus. Like, they like this idea that we're sending them money to take back their land, they will never take it back. Like, and the only way they're strung out, they are depleted, and their own people don't even support it as much as the media say. If that were the case, why do they have to draft people to join? They're forcing people up till age 60 to go fight for their war. And there's videos of people being drug away in vans and stuff. Now, I don't know the legitimacy of all those, but the point is like, it is not as popular among Ukrainians as some of the media would portray. And so the only reasonable solution here is that the point of like Trump and Vance talking to Zelensky like that is like, look, why are we funding you if you're not even trying to negotiate? Because at the end of the day, if our intervention comes in, you need American lives and American blood to be spilled on this, I'm like, I'm out. And again, why is the financial burden always on us? Because we're giving you this money in the form of just here, take it. Not in the form of a loan, not in like, there was never a here, hey, pay us back. None of that. It's like, here's money, here's money, here's money. And so as long as the conflict is drawn out, it's never ending money source from us. And so it's like, look, encouraging people to, and people are like, oh, look, he's all friendly with Putin. I'm like, yeah, when the guy with the blue tie does that, you call it diplomacy. But because Trump does it, it's like, he's just palling up to fascists. And I'm like, at the end of the day, that's what diplomacy is trying to find a middle ground so we can avoid bloodshed. It's better than sending thousands of lives from either side to go die because you couldn't sit down and talk things out a little bit. But I mean, like I said, take things with a grain of salt, but I prefer this outcome. But then when you flip it on the Israel-Palestine conflict, Trump said something that I don't like, and it seems a lot of Republicans had a bad reaction to it, was when he talks about Gaza and how we're going to level it all and make it a part of the U.S. And I'm like, no, I do not want any part of that. Now, what I'm hoping this is that it's typical like Donald Trump fare. He just speaks very boisterously, and I hope this is just kind of sending a message to Benjamin Netanyahu. It's like, look, you've had all this time and money to get this figured out. Figure it out, or we will, and then it's ours. Like, I hope that's kind of the messaging, because at the end of the day, I don't want us to be involved in that conflict anymore either. I'm sick of us being like dumping money and lives into other people's wars. Like, we got to just stick to ourselves, butt out, and rebuild ourselves. I'm tired of playing roles and regime changes and all this crap. Like, I'm almost a non-interventionist in every way, like in every reasonable way. But I think the way that I've heard it phrased best is that you got to give Trump a little space, because what does he really mean? Because sometimes if he says, oh, we want tariffs to pay for all of our taxes, does he really want that? Or does he really want it to pay for like 50%? But if he asks for 50%, he might just get 25%. If he asks for all of it, they might meet him down to 50%. You know, it's like the difference between Democrats and Republicans is that Democrats will take Trump literally, but not seriously. Republicans will take him seriously, but not literally. And so I don't think he literally wants to take over Gaza and level it. He's just kind of trolling with that, but he's serious about, hey, get this figured out, or we will play a bigger role. And you don't want that. So I'm hoping that's the case. So
Yeah, I don't want America to be involved in anything that's going on with Ukraine. I saw the video of just one Ukrainian man just walking his dog, and then this van pulls up real quick, and a bunch of guys hop out, and then they chase after the man walking his dog, and they stuff him in the van. So I think that was funny, but at the same time, if that's going on, that's pretty
creepy,
sad,
dude, because you
for
can hear the guy
country.
screaming and everything.
Yeah, that's pretty sad if that's happening in Ukraine. And Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm on the side of America just not being involved with the Ukraine Russia war, and it's kind of like an insult to other countries who've already pledged that they'll put their own troops on the ground in Ukraine. Like a bunch of countries have come together, try to get this war ended, and they've all come together and told Zelensky that, hey, we got your back. But then Zelensky will just tell them, hey, we're not doing this without U.S. backing. So that just shows that he's not really into, like, the only person he wants on his side is the U.S. because he knows that the U.S. has the money, U.S. has the weapons, and that's kind of an insult to all the other countries who have pledged to help them. So,
Yeah, I mean,
but
and
yeah,
that kind of goes for a lot of like European countries as well. It's like, hey, they'll preach to death about how we all need to get on this green initiative, but if the U.S. withdraws, they're like, oh no, now everything fails. I'm like, why? We're just one country. You guys are countries that are hundreds of years older than ours, but for whatever reason, our influence is the only one that matters. Like when you want to do these like big green initiatives, we're the one that literally supplies like 90% of the money. I'm like, I thought you guys were all in on this, you know? It's like, look, I'm not saying you guys don't get involved. I'm just saying stop roping me into everybody else's mess. Because then guess what? When we do get involved, everyone's like, oh, there goes America being world police again. But when we're not intervening, then they're like, hey, you don't care. You're so callous. So come fix our problems. It's like, look, I'm done. I'm done with trying to please like others, you know? So for me, it's like, just
yeah,
step out and focus on rebuilding our own strength. You know, it's like,
yeah,
it's like when you're like, how are you going to go get your soldier in shape that's like failing the PT test, but meanwhile you're like actively obese and failing yourself, you know? It's like you got to fix yourself before you can go stand on any kind of soapbox.
yeah. And America has never learned from history until Trump came into office. These countries rope in the U.S. with humanitarian aid, right? And then suddenly the U.S. leads the humanitarian aid, and then it evolves to the U.S. leading, a conflict, and which ends up in a war, just like what happened in the previous wars. Like, wasn't Vietnam like started off with humanitarian?
Yeah, it kind of did, but I'm not going to go into that because I'm not as educated on that history as I should be. So I really don't want to
Yeah,
like.
especially in I think in South Africa with Black Hawk Down. That certainly was a humanitarian aid, and it escalated real quick. And the other wars, I forgot what the wars were, but yeah, the U.S. seems to get roped in with all this humanitarian aid, trying to step in for peace, but ends up leading the conflict and gets involved in all these wars. But I'm
But
glad Trump took office because that stops the wars, because he doesn't want no war. He's the only president who hasn't started a war so far.
right, which is why like his statements on Gaza is like, dude, don't make me regret this, because that was a big appeal, is that you hadn't gone down that path. Don't do the neocon thing. But, that all being said, it's like all these efforts to want to do charity and humanitarian stuff, it's all good. The problem is that the way things are conducted is that we have room for people to, oh, let me just sneak in here and get a government contract. My cousin's a senator. He can get get this secured for me. And because of all this contracting bids that we end up doing, we end up prolonging things that don't need to be prolonged, wasting money on things we don't need to waste it on, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, it's just, yeah, I'm tired of all that. It's like we just gotta, like I said last year, I'm
Yeah,
like, hey, Flint, Michigan still doesn't have drinking water. Maui's still burnt down. Let's fix that.
yeah. Just like a waste of time, like how U.S. aid is a waste of time. But anyways, did you hear that Trump issued to the college schools that if they don't control their what you call their rallies, their protests. He's going to stop federal aid to the schools. I don't know if he can legally do that, but he just announced it today that if foreign students are caught in those protests, he's going to deport them.
That is interesting.
So if you're from another country on a visa, you better be careful with those protests. You know, your parents send you out here to go to school, not to protest a conflict that you're not involved with. You know, I like freedom of speech, but there's a time and place, and be smart about these things. There was a protest in Salt Lake today that blocked the whole streets of Salt Lake, but yeah, he announced that today, and I think it's funny.
Now that is interesting. I mean, it does take a bit of hubris to be like, you know what, this country is so generous, it lets me in, allows me to get an education there, but F this country. You know, it's like there, it's like, hey, you know, at a certain point, maybe don't bite the hand that feeds you. It's not even to the extreme where it's like, you know, Germany, you can get sent to jail for telling jokes that bother people. You know, it's like that's happening in the UK right now. Like if literally people have gone to jail for Facebook posts in the UK, and it's like, look, it's not to that level. We're just saying, hey, well, I didn't hear about this one, like what you just brought up. That's new, but I do remember earlier this year, or maybe it was the end of last year, they were talking about like students that are aligning themselves with terrorist groups, and if we find out they're foreign students and they are aligning themselves with terrorist groups like Hamas, deported. It's like, now you don't have to be here, revoked. And I'm like, so this whole one of like, depending on what you're protesting, that's a new one to me. But the whole aligning yourself with actual terrorist groups that the government acknowledges, that one I get. And like, yeah, I agree with that.
So Spence, let's change the topic a little bit. I heard from a source that something very, it's funny to me when I heard it from this source that this past weekend, I heard that you got attacked by a prostitute. Tell me about it.
I can't give you all these details, man. Like, hey, first off, that's a bad way to start a story because it makes it sound way more interesting than it is. I'm not going to go into a lot of details, but I work on the Las Vegas Strip, and I was apprehending someone who was doing something they weren't supposed to. And in that scuffle, it is not that I got battered or assaulted. It's just that I'm getting old. And because my right calf muscle was tensed while I was apprehending this person, I felt a pop and my leg buckled. And yeah, I've been put on workers' comp for a week now because yeah, my body's old, and apparently if I use my calf, it just breaks nowadays. And so then taking a pain med, I've got an MRI coming up later this week, but that's all it is. See, like the premise of the story sounds a lot more interesting than the actual story. The real story is I'm just getting old.
So when you apprehended this individual, did you have a partner walking with you, or were you doing by yourself?
It was a 2-man act. That's the way that we do things on our property, is that you don't conduct a citizen's arrest by yourself. You have to, it's a 2-person operation just for our protocol. So yeah, I had a buddy helping me, and everything went down smooth. I just was limping away when we were done. So that was all.
Well, I'm glad that you're safe and on the mend. Because when I heard it, I'm like, damn. At first, I didn't know who they were mentioning, but then I put two together, Vegas and security. I'm like, oh, I know who they're talking about. It was Spence.
Word seems to travel.
But I'm glad everything went good. Yeah, the word traveled quick.
Man, no, it was like I said, it was not as interesting. It's not even the most interesting thing I've done at work, but I'll just leave it at that. Like it was kind of lame. I leave it and just being like, man, really, all the stuff that I do, this is what hurts me. But okay, whatever. I just kind of like, I'm glad I'm on a workman's comp. But it would have been cooler if this happened during some Army stuff, so I could be sure to get it documented for my VA disability. But because I was mad, I was looking at some forms. I hurt my back last summer, and I'm getting my stuff ready to drop on the VA. And I looked at the forms, and the doctor didn't put it down as a back injury. He put it down as chronic back pain. And I'm like, what? And I'm like, I hurt my back lifting a toolbox, like on and off of a Humvee. And I was twisting during the lift, and it's like my back just gave out. And it was like, that's not chronic back pain, because chronic back pain is just like, no, his back just kind of always hurts. I'm like, yeah, that's true. But I specifically heard it doing this action during this training period. And I'm like, I don't know. For whatever reason, Army doctors just suck. They can't even write a sentence correctly. It's like,
But real quick, I want to shout out one of our newest donors, one of our newest partners, the Larry H. and Gail Miller Foundation. We want to thank you for your donation. We thank you for your generous donation, for your support, and for trusting behind the Lava Lava Foundation and donating to our Veterans Empowerment Program. Big faftai to the Lava. Thank you for your support. So, Spence, I know there was a topic that you wanted to bring up. Do you remember what it is?
So what was on my mind is just kind of keeping us on the subject of modern events and American politics. Here's another new proposal that I think is actually absolutely dumb. And it's our new FBI director saying that he wants FBI agents to start being trained by the UFC. Like, do you see this?
Yeah, I heard of that.
I don't know. Look, I just don't understand what that even means, because the UFC doesn't even train fighters. UFC doesn't have coaches. It, like, every fighter is a private contractor, right? The fighters themselves have their own gyms and their own coaches, and then they sign a deal with the UFC to go fight. The UFC is just a promotion. So who at the UFC is training? The fighters? Because here's the thing. Agents, military, law enforcement, depending on, law enforcement's different because it depends on the city and the state, but most of those guys already train in the same martial arts that the MMA fighters use, but they just use the skill sets that are most pertinent to their job. A lot of police officers train jujitsu because it helps with apprehending a suspect. I don't understand what it even means to have the UFC train our FBI agents. And to me, it reeks of possible corruption, because, look, we're on the side of, hey, we don't want to deal with all this government money going towards just the people who campaign for us. Well, an active proponent of Donald Trump was Dana White, the UFC president. So it almost looks like, is this a way of hooking up the guy spoke at my rally, now let me hook him up with $1 billion government contract. But for a service that the UFC doesn't even provide. Again, they're a fight promotion. They don't train fighters. And the fighters themselves, you want the fighters to train. Well, guess what? That's not in their job description because they're independent contractors. So I'm like, when I read that, I'm like, this is one of those things that sounds good to people who don't follow the sport. Like, ooh, our FBI agents are all going to be like cage fighters. But it's actually absolutely retarded when you break down what does that actually mean. There's no, that's not a service that's even currently provided by the UFC, but somehow they're going to get a government contract to do this. And like I said, look at guys like Tim Kennedy, guys like Brian Stan. These guys were already trained martial artists because of what they did in the military way before they came to be kind of like athletes. You know what I mean? So it's all, I don't know, just to me, I'm like, it sounds good on the surface, but the more you think about it, the dumber it is. I don't know if you follow that or if you have an opinion on that.
Yeah, they're going. What's going to happen is they're going to cut out. They're going to have contractors bid on creating some sort of program, and they're going to pour so much money into something, and then they're going to realize, hey, it's not working well for the FBI. Why does the FBI need to be trained like UFC fighters, especially if they're not apprehending their the people, they're not taking them down like how you take down a opponent in the UFC, mixed martial arts. But yeah, it's. I think they're just looking for useless ways to pour millions of dollars into a program, just like you said, hooking someone up. But yeah, just like a lot of these government programs, it's a lot of fraud, waste, abuse. Even, we've been in the military, you see that fraud, waste, abuse. I also see it on the civilian side. And I'm like, man, these guys are just buying a bunch of tools, a bunch of equipment that I don't even need, replacing them annually. I'm like, man, that's a lot of taxpayer money that the federal government is wasting, and we see it. And now finally Doge is doing something about it. I'm glad that they're actually rooting out the fraud, the waste and abuse now, so that this doesn't keep going, this doesn't keep happening over the years. It would have been way worse going down the line, especially for the future generation. I hope they'll do these things like what Doge is doing every few years, like purge the federal government, do audits at least, and figure out where the money is going.
Yeah, and to make that work, people got to not be hypocrites. It's like if you're willing to call out wasteful spending because someone else started it, you better be ready to acknowledge when it's pointed out on your side. And this whole let's train all our FBI agents with the USC, it's like, that sounds stupid. You know what that makes? This is how you get Krav Maga, and everyone knows that doesn't work. Just kidding. Shots taken. Just kidding. No, but like, yeah, I don't know. I was like, that sounds dumb to me. So I hope that, because the main thing is like, if you're an FBI agent, you're already training in a lot of pertinent skill sets, and training to like move and act like John Jones is not going to help you unless you're beating up your wife. I mean, just kidding. Like,
you're gonna get some flack for that.
Hey, John Jones can argue that fact, but he got arrested in my city for doing that. So it's like, shame.
Hey, how about they take that money? How about they take that money and invest it into the military mixed martial arts program? Because a lot of these programs that the military has now doesn't really apply in the real world. Who stands there while you're getting, when you're trying to stab them, right? There was a video. This video, well, I got curious about something, and it took me down this rabbit hole of, I don't know if you've seen the video of a Russian soldier and Ukrainian soldier hand-to-hand combat, and go look it up. You'll find the video on X if you want to go down that rabbit hole. And they were fighting for, I'm not sure, 15, 30 minutes. And then at the end of the video, they were exhausted. They were pretty much like, how do I describe it? They were stabbing each other they try to take turns, like get the knife of whoever was holding the knife. And anyways, I don't want to go into detail. You'll just have to watch it yourself. But it was pretty sad to watch, because here you have two men fighting a war that they never wanted to be involved in, and they're fighting for their lives. At the end, the Russian soldier won, and the Ukrainian soldier was like, he knew he was dying, and at the end, they were kind of acknowledging each other, and the Russian soldier was saying, "Hey, you're a good fighter." They were paying respects to each other, while the Ukrainian soldier knew he was dying. So I was reading into it, and at the somehow the Russian soldier, while he was walking away, he dropped a grenade on him to kind of finish him up respectfully, or something like that. But I don't know if you want to go down that rabbit hole of crazy videos to watch.
Nah, I mostly just watch dumb videos. Like, I don't like watching a lot of I don't know. I do see some too crazy videos, but I'm gonna leave it to people to find those for themselves what they want to watch. I don't like watching stuff like that, especially for
It'll
entertainment.
cause some
Yeah,
PTSD. So
like I don't, especially for entertainment purposes. I'm like, I watch fake stuff for entertainment, not real. but but the as far as restructuring the military's martial arts program, I'm like, look, the Marines have a good one. You guys have your own belt system and all that. The Army's is it's useful, but there's so many jobs in the Army. Like you may not ever need it. So like I don't know. I don't really want to weigh in on what it should be. I think it'd be cool. I'd love for basically the military to go back to actually, especially the Army, being like, look, we are a fighting force. Like even if you're here, your MOS is to be a janitor, you need to be a fighting janitor. Like there's a reason why we would hire you instead of a contractor janitor. It's like at the end of the day, I think it would be better for our overall morale. But I mean, look, we're just like recruitment numbers are starting to go up since Trump took office, but let's see if it continues to go in that direction. But we've got a lot of rebuilding and restructuring to do in the Army right now to before I can start addressing things like that. Because right now we're even just trying to get our numbers up. Like the Army was kind of like ransacked almost over the last like 4 years, like where people just did not want to join. Guys just want to get out. So right now it's still in the whole, we got to do what we can with what we got, But I mean, I'm optimistic. We have good young people in my unit. I learned that I've said this before on my last deployment. Like the youngest guy in my squad was 22, or the oldest guy in my squad was 22. The youngest had just turned 19 on that deployment, but they were all solid guys. Like if they were beating a lower standard, it's because a lower standard was asked of them. And so I don't even like doing this whole, it's the new generation sucks, because they're not, the new generation doesn't set the standards. They don't set the bar. The generation before them does. And so I've always gotten good results from my guys, but it's because I make it very clear, you take care of me, I'll take care of you, and I've always gotten good results out of my people. As far as the Army as a whole, like we got to get our numbers up and see where we're at with our overall leadership. And I think that'll go in a good direction in the near future, but we'll see. Time will tell. And hopefully by then we start restructuring and make us get more focused on combat and combatives again, because I think that should be integral to a fighting force.
yeah, you know what? I actually feel sorry for people who are in that Marine Corps belt system, because in order for you to pick up rank and advance, you actually have to advance in your belt level too. Because it was kind of like forced. Because I didn't want to get my butt kicked every time, getting thrown around, because it was painful. But it was kind of like a rite of passage, and it was a great experience to learn. You guys called it combatives, right? Yeah, but it was a great experience. But I did not enjoy getting thrown around. What I did enjoy is getting pitted against other people, and then you have to tap each other out. So that was the fun part. But the non-fun part is having to run on mountains and wearing a flak jacket and throwing each other around and doing all these other stuff. But
I mean, and
yeah, that's just me. I don't like getting thrown around.
no, I don't blame you. I mean, like, and I wish we could do more combatives, but don't take it from me. I'm a pogue, so like, don't. But like I wasn't privy to a lot of that. I always wanted to get like more combative level certified, but it just wasn't in the cards. But I do that on my own time, so like I'm content with what I can do and what I continue to pursue. I'm like on the civilian side. I wish I could have got those certifications in the Army, but with my MOS and my component, just wasn't in the cards, and it is what it is. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. I still got my training done. So, but yeah, outside of that, like that's kind of the main thing I had on my mind. So I guess just to follow up, continuing down from there, since we're continuing with American politics in 2025, how do you think our illustrious speaker, Auntie Tulsi's doing? She recently took her new office. How do you think she's doing? I don't know if we've really heard much news of what she's done yet. She just got in there, but shout out to Auntie Tulsi.
I think she's doing an amazing job so far. Well, she's fired like hundreds of people who were like doing like explicit mess, like messaging through the whatever system they're using. Do you know how many people that she fired from that group? Yeah, there's a bunch of people that they fired because they were, I guess, either like messaging explicit stuff using a government
Like
program.
server,
So like
or Discord or something.
So they were doing that. So they got caught and they got fired. But yeah, she's doing a great job. The first Samoan woman or Samoan to hold a position high up in the cabinet. But yeah, proud Samoan.
I hope to keep hearing good things about her. It is kind of ironic because she went from being ostracized by these national intelligence groups to now she's in charge of them. So like this is the irony's pretty fun. But my only thing is that I have noticed a change in her public persona a little bit, and it's just one of those things where I'm like, is she genuinely changing on some things, or is this just kind of an organized effort to sell her better to conservatives? Because like it's things like if on her Instagram she's posting a lot of her running and doing these these firearms obstacles and all these different courses that she's running through, and I'm like, hey, don't think I forgot that when you campaigned to be a Democrat primary, you were very anti 2A. Like she is a staunch gun control person, but now she's like, look at me running all these firearms courses and shooting my guns. I'm like, have you changed, or is this just your messaging so you're more palatable to conservatives? But then it's also like, and I love Auntie Tulsi, but there are things where I'm just like, I don't get it, because I even going back to like, I remember on Thanksgiving, she was posting, she went on a hike with her husband to some mountain in Hawaii, and she was saying, I thank God for this day or I'm thankful for this day where we can thank God for our blessings. And that she says that a lot, but I'm like, which God? Because Auntie Tulsi is Hindu. Like they have like a million gods. And I'm like, I'm not even saying I'm faulting you for that, but again, the messaging of thank God is very appealing to a Judeo-Christian ethic where we believe in like the one God. But but you're over there saying thank God. Like, which God are you talking about? Like, but I know she's not hiding the fact that she's Hindu, because she also posts how she's a guest speaker at Diwali celebrations and things like that, or Diwali gatherings, and she's a guest speaker to those. So she's not hiding the fact that she's Hindu, but it's also like, I don't know, is that a common thing with Hindus to say thank God for this or that is just a figure of speech, or are you actually thanking a God here? But I don't know. This is just me. I can't just be happy with a poly succeeding, I guess. So I don't know.
Hey, we have a lot to learn, and then people change their minds. So it reminds me of a situation here in Utah where during the whole voting process, because Utah here we voted in 3 Polynesians and to represent, what are their positions, congresswoman, congressmen, or the Senate. But after they won, people were like, oh, we don't like what they're doing, we don't like the bills they're promoting and all that, proposing and all that stuff. And I was saying, that's okay to have your own opinions. You don't have to like the stuff they're doing, but you can still support them. But at the same time, like, just because they're poly doesn't mean you really need to, be on their side. Just because they're veterans, you don't have to be on their side.
Like Dan Crenshaw.
You trust your gut. You trust your gut, and take everything with a grain of salt.
That's true. And like I said earlier, it's like we don't have to be in lockstep on everything. Like I can just say overall, look, these are just some little interesting things I noticed about Anti-Tulsi, but I still think it's a net positive. So I hope that continues to be the case. I'm rooting for her. It's like I don't want anybody to do a bad job in these important positions. So hoping for the best. And thanks again for our shout out during our Veterans Day dinner. That was epic.
Any shout outs, Spence?
Yeah. Well, since I'm on workers' comp and I'm not working, I've been filling in all my extra time mixing. So been going back around our office here in Las Vegas, Kalapu Teletype View, the 702 chapter. We're celebrating our first year since we opened up. And so we got the Aho coming up on March 15th. We're looking forward to all the other chapters coming in and everybody else who's just down to mix. We'll see you there. Reach out to us, Teletype View 702 on Instagram. First year down, hopefully many more to come. So shout out to the KTTF, everybody who supports. Shout out to Swan Breezy and Jay Strings who came through and everybody who came through during Rugby League. It was great to have everybody together because, like I said, normally I'm working on the weekends, but getting injured and being out so I could allowed me to reconnect with the Kalapu. So shout out.
Yeah, shout out to all our sponsors and our donors, especially for our nonprofit. This month we turned 1. So happy birthday to Behind the Love of Love Foundation. This month is when we actually received our 501c3, got our status as a nonprofit, and have been doing good work for our veterans in our community. Thank you for all those who have supported our journey. American United Federal Credit Union, Cypress Credit Union, the Utah Veteran Business Resource Center, Pacifica Foods, Nothing But Grinds, everyone. And especially our new donor, the Larry H. and Gail Miller Foundation. So we really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Lava Lava. We encourage you to explore our website, our social media platforms, discover more about what we do, and find ways of how you can contribute. Our nonprofit needs volunteers to help us serve our veteran community and to be out there. So if you want to play pickleball or help us fundraise or even join our leadership team, you don't need any skill set. You don't need to be a veteran. Just come as you are. You can be a civilian. Come help us make a difference, make an impact. So if you found value in this episode, don't forget to follow Behind the Lava Lava. Leave us a review. This is Michael Tan and Spencer Harmon signing off. To Fasoy Fuel.
Working on my interests, it's who I am. I'm trying to make these digits look like EINs. When the help ain't free, you all help me. Salute to folks who turn their names to LLCs. The wealth is in itself to help a non-profit. To be better women or better men, whether business by veterans or common folks with a dream. We're all born with the same strength. We tread waters that were untouched. Let's be on the same wavelength. Behind the lava, front of our eyes. Let our legacy live off it when we're up in the sky. All signs point to us to help someone make a difference. With God as my witness, cause talk business.